Today we're talking about venture philanthropy. What's that? Well, it's a revolutionary charitable initiative that could form a big part of David Cameron's vision for a big society over the next few years. Hello and welcome to the Good Causes Show. I'm Jane Constantinis. Now, there's compelling new evidence that charities and businesses can work side by side to alleviate poverty and find new solutions to help people and communities shape a better future for themselves. Well, joining me today are Daniela Baroni Suarez, who's the CEO of one such enabling organisation, the Impetus Trust, and two CEOs of charities that they're working alongside, Matt Stevenson-Dodd of Street League and Dr. Rachel Carr from Into University. Welcome to all of you. Thank you for joining us. Coming up on today's show, a new venture for charities and businesses, getting help to those who need it, and all your questions answered. And don't forget, we are live, so if you want to get one of your questions to our guests, then use the box on your screen. Send us your name as well, please. And if you're tweeting, use the hashtag StudioTalk. So if you wouldn't mind, Daniela, just begin by telling us about Impetus Trust, what it is, how it works, and what was the inspiration behind it.
Okay, Impetus aims to find and build the Googles in the charity sector. So we're an active form of philanthropy that gives money as well as skills so that we can scale up successful charities so that they can increase their social impact. We're looking for social returns, not financial returns. In what we use the sort of somehow the principles of venture capital. So three key things. We give them financial support, so over 4 to 5 years we give them funding. We give them management support from the Impetus team, and we give them specialist support that we recruit in the business community to special projects within the charity.
So how are you different to other organisations?
I mean, all this package is quite different because it's very hands-on, and first of all, the funding goes over a longer period of time in a more strategic way. We don't fund a project, we actually fund a plan for growth of social impact, and we give this huge management support to the organizations.
Now, Matt, Rachel, you're on the receiving end of this philanthropy, but Daniela's using words that apply to a venture capitalist organisation, and they're traditionally quite tough on the companies they invest in. Is that the case?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a great approach. What it is coming into an organisation and saying, look, we'll give you some funding, which everybody needs, especially in this climate, but it's also saying we're going to give you a lot of support and a lot of investment in terms of time and expertise that we just couldn't afford to buy in. And it's our investment is pretty much the same in cash as it is in expertise and help, and that's really important.
And your charity does?
Street League changed lives through football. So we work with some of the most disadvantaged young people in the country. Through a structured education and football sessions, we help young people go into work, educational training.
And Rachel, tell us about your charity and how you found the experience of working with Impetus.
Into University is a charity working with disadvantaged children from the age of 7 who have no family history of going to university, and we provide a sustained programme of support to help them realise their potential. And Impetus, we have a very good relationship and partnership with Impetus. It is tough. The due diligence process they undertake is very thorough, but once that's been undertaken, there's a relationship of trust and support in reaching your targets and completing your business plan, and that's been really, really beneficial to us as a charity. We've expanded from running 1 centre to running 6, from seeing 850 students to 5,000 a year, and Impetus has been absolutely crucial in that growth plan.
So here are two success stories. You've taken them under your wing, as it were. What's your criteria for working with a charity?
Well, we're focusing on economic disadvantage. So we're looking for organizations that are intervening at critical points to enable their beneficiaries to break out of that intergenerational cycle of disadvantage. And so that is a key criteria. The other criteria are that the chief executives are ambitious and backable in a sense that we can work together, that there is a good fit. There is a size criteria as well, between roughly £250,000 of income to about £10 million of income, as well as they have to be headquartered in the UK, exactly because our support is so intensive that we feel we need to be at some proximity to the organization.
So ambitious and backable, labels that, that I'm sure you recognise. Of course, there's no getting away from the fact that this isn't a good time for the charitable, any charitable sector, with government money especially squeezed from all sides. How are you finding the business of getting backing for your good causes?
I think in terms of Street League, what's been helpful with Impetus is to help us really focus on what we're really good at. So it's actually helped us go through a process, a lot of consultancy, to help us get to a point where we can make a clear message to businesses, to funders, you know, to actually say this is what Street League does, this is the impact we make, and this is why we're backable. And that's been really helpful.
I'd agree, and I'd just add that for us, having the Impetus name has been a great lever for funding, because once you've been through Impetus's due diligence process and you've been kind of stamped with the seal of Impetus approval, other people have been more likely to give us funding, trusting in that judgment. So that's been incredibly helpful for us.
And you talked earlier about targets and due diligence and so on. Is that something that is helpful? It sounds like it's just a much more business-like approach to running your organisations.
Well, I don't know about you, but I've found for Inter-University it's been really helpful, because it hasn't been, oh, here's a random target. It's been, here's our business plan, this is what we want to achieve with our expansion, our growth plans, how are we going to do it, what do we need to do to get there, and here are the metrics along the way. So it's actually very focused on what you need as a charity, and then how Impetus can support you as a charity get there, rather than a top-down, here's your target, now you meet it. It isn't like that at all.
I think what I've found, especially from the Impetus support, is how similar situations are we're facing in the charity sector to situations in business. You know, perhaps in a big bank, actually. You know, one of the people I've spoken to recently, very similar problems, and actually the approaches they take, you sort of think, how can I do that in the charity? So actually those targets, the things that are coming from business, are really important, and give you a really good focus and a drive forward.
Also, I mean, if you kind of think in the level of growth and ambition that the plans of these organizations want to reach in about 4 to 5 years, the reality is there's about, within that period of time, we're not going to be targeting the day-to-day of what they have to do. They know how to run their organization, but there is about 15 to 20 decision-making points that are critical for them to go from A to B. And in those decision-making points, we want to be there supporting those organizations, giving them the resource so that they make the right decisions and minimize the opportunity for errors, so that they're able to achieve the social outcomes that they so much desire and that it's so beneficial for our society.
Fantastic, thank you. More to come in a minute. In the next part of today's programme, we'll hear about how today Impetus Trust is urging the UK government to adopt principles similar to President Obama's Social Innovation Fund in the US. Stay with us. So if you've just joined us, we're talking about Venture Philanthropy and the work of the Impetus Trust. The charities they support have grown their average income by 31% year on year, which is 8 times the sector average. Well, you might say that figure speaks for itself. Could you have achieved that without Impetus?
I think it'd be difficult to achieve that level of growth. It's a very, very difficult market out there for charities to operate in. There's not a lot of funding around, and you've got to be very, very clear about your focus and purpose. And I think, personally, from Street League's point of view, that's what Impetus have really helped us with, to become very clear about what we're doing, to put the plan together, to look at where we can expand to, where we can deliver more of our service. So it's very much driven by achieving social outcome, but a very much business approach to it, to actually getting there. And without Impetus, I think it would be difficult.
How has your charity and the way you run it changed?
Well, we always had an ambitious growth plan, but we needed the support of Impetus to help us realise the vision, with all the practical expertise, the associate support from all the pro bono people that Impetus have been able to bring on board, and then the very practical support that we get each month through our investment directors meetings. So just a whole wodge of helpful backing, from funding to people to time, that have enabled us to achieve our expansion plans.
I mean, presumably, Danielle, you weren't surprised by the 31% growth figure.
We're actually very proud, because in this environment it is a nice surprise. Of course, we did everything that we can to ensure that, and so it is not so much a surprise, but it's something we're proud of. And even more proud of the 40% growth in the number of people that these organizations collectively are able to reach. And collectively they're now reaching over 250,000 people. And so that is a significant impact, thinking that when we started 8 years ago, we were reaching, through the charities obviously, only a couple of thousand. To go in 8 years to 250,000 is a great achievement.
Because here we are talking about organisations and business systems and targets and so on. Of course, it's actually about changing people's lives, isn't it?
Exactly.
That's what it's all about. This approach, though, is nothing new. Let's hear from the man responsible for delivering the US's Social Innovation Fund and how it works in practice. This is Paul Carter.
The Social Innovation Fund actually represents, in our view, a new way of doing business for the federal government of the United States, and it has two major components. At its core is a grant program that is intended to increase the flow of dollars to high-impact nonprofits that do work in low-income communities. And there are four features of this grant program that we think are really distinctive, that make it a new way of doing business. The first is its focus on solutions that are actually developed within the communities and not within the bureaucracy of the federal government. The second is that we work through intermediaries. So the actual grantees of the Social Innovation Fund are not the actual service-providing nonprofits themselves, but rather are grant-making organizations that have prior experience in identifying high-impact nonprofits, executing grants, and helping those nonprofits grow to realize their full potential for social impact. The third is very strong match requirements. And finally, a variety of other collaborative initiatives that we might support that are themselves intended to improve the impact of organizations throughout the nonprofit sector in the United States, which could include things like advancing the standards of evidence or building more robust grant-making infrastructure.
Interesting that, isn't it? He talks about solutions from within the community. That's sounding much more sort of bottom-up than top-down. That's the model you used, isn't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely. And the idea of the Social Innovation Fund that was created by the Obama administration is that actually they're earmarking some funds to go to intermediary organizations, so organizations like Impetus that are able to find, select, identify and support charities on the ground that are delivering those social solutions that are high impact, innovative social solutions. And the interesting thing about this fund as well is that for each dollar that the government is giving the intermediaries have to match, as well as the recipient charity has to match as well. So there is a nice public, private, voluntary sector partnership there. The interesting thing about this in the UK context, of course, there is some adaptation that needs to be done in the context, but I think it pretty much applies. And the beauty of this fund is that, especially in this context of the big society where the government is demanding more of the sector is being asked to provide a lot more, which is correct because the sector can do a lot more, but it needs to be built to that capacity, it needs to be equipped to deliver more. And so this approach would very much support that.
So are you leading the way in the big society? Does it feel like that?
I'd say big society is a brilliant idea, but actually it's going to require some investment in making it happen. And you know, the American model there is about picking out the intermediaries, the people who understand what's going on the ground, rather than the government centrally controlling a fund and saying, "Oh, here's a fund, apply to it." So actually getting some expertise. And then the other side of it is the whole business side, the backing and the expertise that's coming in terms of support to make sure those ventures actually really succeed.
I think Daniela's point about the combination of public, private and voluntary sector is really important. It's not a kind of standalone that you could survive with just one of those. It's the combination of those three things that.
And especially in the sector that you're operating in, because the problems you're tackling impact on all of those areas, impact on all of us every day of our lives, don't they?
Exactly.
So, can it work here? Up next, your questions answered. Stay with us. So let's take the questions that you've been sending in now, and let's start with one here from Tom, who wants to ask you, Matt and Rachel, if you could do anything again differently, what would it be? This is not a life question. We don't hear about haircuts or anything like that. What would you do differently, if anything?
I think knowing what you know now, it's a really easy thing, isn't it, to look back? But
yeah, exactly.
I think you'd like to think that you did more, faster, quicker, and made those decisions. But actually, I think there's a difference between the time before Impetus and the time after Impetus, and I would say that Impetus helped us speed up some of those things. So, maybe I'd have applied a bit earlier or something like that. I think just to kind of get those things to happen quicker. We're certainly in a better shape now than we were because we're a lot more focused, and it's got to be better.
Just tell us briefly about the application process, because you mentioned that.
Yeah, I think it's really sort of full-on process. We talked about this before, actually. A lot of due diligence. It takes a long time. It's a big thing to go through, and there's a value in that. I think that by the time you come to the end of it, you've been through it, and you understand, that you're in a place that you're a backable charity.
Would you have done anything differently along the line?
Lots of things. Learned lots of lessons, made lots of mistakes, but I think overall really pleased with our Impetus relationship and how our charity's developed.
Would you have rather just had the money?
If you'd asked me that when Impetus first were talking to us, I would have said yes, just give me the money and leave me alone. But actually, very quickly into the relationship, I was really clear how vital the rest of it was, and I certainly wouldn't do it differently now. It's just been amazing for us.
It's interesting, actually. The value of our money that we got in hard cash and the value of the expertise are pretty much equal. And actually, you think that's a doubling of the investments. It's worth a lot.
Okay, let's take another question from Michael, who says, as well as the US, are there any other countries where there are best practice examples of venture philanthropy?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we have seen good practices in Australia, for example. We have seen good practices in Italy. We have seen good practices in Ireland. So we are in touch with these people as well, because this is such an innovative approach that every time we see good practice anywhere, we keep in touch with these people and try to exchange what we're doing, what they're doing, what they're finding, lessons learned, how can we improve the way that we tackle. And in the US, of course, there are a few organizations there as well.
And what about the future for your organization? Are you thinking of moving into different sectors or expanding?
Yes, definitely. I mean, we are definitely, given the results that we've had, given the successes, with working with charities, we definitely want to expand and work with, hundreds of charities, not just tens of charities, and that, and also just not through us, but expanding the venture philanthropy practices in the sector as well. So there are two ways. There is dissemination, but there is also our own model, our own scale up that we can do it, that we want to do. Absolutely.
And what about, briefly if you can, your future plans? We've heard that you're ambitious and backable, both of you. So what are your plans for your organisation?
Well, for Street League, our plan is to follow the 2018 bid, the England 2018 bid, and expand to the 10 cities that hopefully the World Cup will be hosted in 2018, and it's major cities around the UK, just so we can deliver more of our service, basically.
And Into University's plan is to double our capacity from 6 to 12 centres and 5,000 to 10,000 students a year, and then looking at a kind of national rollout of our service.
Well, we wish you the very best of luck, but you don't need luck because you've got Danielle on board. Thank you very much. We could go on and on. We'd love to talk more about it, but thank you for coming in to tell us all about it. And thank you for watching. We hope you found it interesting. If you'd like more information, then go to the website, which is impetus.org.uk. Bye for now.